Margaret, I was wondering if you might, share some vignettes of other abolitionist women and John Brown. And let me just say this, just to set this up, because I'd love to hear you talk about it for our friends who are here. The fact that John Brown was thinking about women even when he was considering his organizations that he founded, that he had a place that he saw women as being equal participants.
Well, I think one of the most inspiring aspects of uh, the provisional constitution, John Brown he was working on setting up what we call in Latin American history a maroon society, and Caribbean history a maroon society, in which enslaved people flee the plantations and go off into the mountains and set up their own communities. And that's what John Brown was going to do. That's one of the things he was planning with Harriet Tubman, to set up basically a maroon society. And so he created a constitution. And within that, first of all, what was amazing to me was that because Black women were so sexually violated as enslaved women, that he had a vile punishment for any man who violated a woman. In addition to that, just like in the maroon societies in the Caribbean and Spanish and Portuguese America, men and women were going to fight equally. If they were attacked, then everybody fought, which was basically a sign of equality in this society that he was hoping would be built. But in terms of his relationship with certain Black women, we've talked about Harriet Tubman, but he had a very close relationship with Anna Douglas, Frederick Douglass's wife. And one of the Douglas biographers, I believe it might have been William McFeely, wrote about the time that John Brown was in Rochester talking about his provisional constitution with Douglas, but Douglas was back and forth because he was a very busy man. And Douglas said he talked about it so much that he became a bit of a bore. And Douglas would go off and leave, and John Brown was there for a month. And the person who saw to his needs was Anna. And and if you can imagine, she's a very quiet woman, couldn't read and write, and was sort of in the background all the time. And here she was involved enough, both in the underground with Amy Post and Isaac Post, but also involved enough with the movement, so that he was there for a month and a half. And much of that time, Frederick was gone. One can just imagine, because Anna couldn't read and write, the kind of relationship that they had. But one of the most inspiring aspects of his relationship with Black women, and there are many, we don't have time to get into all of them, was when he goes to Harper's Ferry and Frederick Douglass meets him there. And he tells Douglass, I want you to come with me. And Douglass says, you're walking into a perfect steel trap. Once you get in, you'll never get out alive. And so they say goodbye, they hug. And then Douglass says, oh, I forgot. Here is a letter and a donation for your raid from Elizabeth Gloucester of Brooklyn, New York. And Elizabeth Gloucester she was the wife of James Gloucester, a prominent Presbyterian minister. She was an African American, involved in real estate. She had owned a boarding house. She was a businesswoman. And here she is donating money to John Brown. And the same thing with Mary Ann Shadd Cary, who people don't talk about this. We focus so much on Harriet Tubman. Mary Ann Shadd Cary also met John Brown in Chatham. And she was a resident of Chatham. She was a very strong advocate, and she was very militant. She was just Harriet Tubman all over again, and just much younger. Frances Ellen Watkins, aka Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, as we know, was the person who wrote the letter whom you read, but she also wrote a poem And I'm arguing in my work that she wrote that poem first for her uncle who raised her, um, and was a important abolitionist in the city of Baltimore. She came from a prominent Baltimore family. He was one of the leaders in the Underground Railroad. But after the 1850 fugitive slave law, he was so discouraged that he finally moved to Canada. And she wrote the poem, Bury Me in a Free Land. And it was published in the Anti-Slavery Bugle. And then when John Brown and his raiders were tried and sentenced, she sent it to Aaron Stevens, Bury Me in a Free Land.
Yes.
And so we have those two documents, the one that you read, which is so eloquent, and then this amazing poem that she wrote for her uncle and then saw fit to give it to these white raiders, which was a sign of the unity of the movement across race. I thought that was just really brilliant, that she was basically saying, this is for you, just like it was for my uncle.
Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. Yeah. Yes. And that poem did mean a great deal to the Raiders, even after Brown was hanged. Yes.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.